So for those who don't know about the California Fish Passage Forum, or those who do know about the California Fish Passage Forum but would like to know a little bit more, I'm just going to go over in a brief, just a brief overview of the forum. I'm not going to do that via slides. Instead, I figure I would just take us to the forum's webpage. So the California Fish Passage Forum is a cooperative and collaborative organization. We're governed by a memorandum of understanding bylaws that beholden our signatories to participate in the organization. And we do get a great amount of collaboration, participation from our signatories, which include federal agencies like NOAA and US Fish and Wildlife Service and the Forest Service, as well as some state agencies like CDFW, state parks, and DWR and the Coastal Conservancy. Our fiscal agent and the manager of our grants is the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission. And we do also have great participation from our nonprofit partners, California Trout and Trout Unlimited. We have a mission to protect and revitalize anadromous fish populations by restoring connectivity of freshwater habitats throughout their historic range. That's obviously a lofty goal, and I'm sure it's one that many here can relate to. We do have a strategic framework that goes over our 7 strategic objectives that is available here on our website. We are under the banner of the National Fish Habitat Partnership, NIFHAP. We're one of 20 nationally recognized fish habitat partnerships, which do span the entire United States, Alaska, and Hawaii included. And together we do quite a lot of good work across the country. That includes the annual funding of projects. So since our inception in 2013, we have funded over 50 projects, which include scientific research, barrier remediations and removals, riparian and floodplain connectivity projects. So we do like to try to fund a good variety. For anybody interested, this is the project map of everything that we have done since we have started funding projects in 2013. And for more information about any particular project, all of our funded projects are searchable in a searchable database format on our website. These include projects like you saw from all over the state. We try to fund between 4 to 6 projects annually. And we're really grateful to all of our people who apply to our funding opportunity. The forum funding opportunity does come through the National Fish Habitat Partnership to us from the US Fish and Wildlife Service. It is attached to the congressional budget, so we do not know exactly how much we're going to get each year, but we do try to fund between 4 and 6 projects. We prefer to fund a diverse array of projects with asking amounts of less than $10,000 preferred, just so that we can fund quite a few projects each year. One of the major stipulations of this funding opportunity is that we do require a 1-to-1 non-federal match. We welcome applications before all of that match is secured, and there may be opportunities in the future to relax that requirement a little bit, but right now we do try to fund things that have a 1-to-1 match requirement, or as close to it as possible. Our funding opportunity can be a good source of cost share for your project, funding for unanticipated design needs or cost increases. Project monitoring is, I know, something that can be a bit difficult to fund. We love funding monitoring for existing projects or projects that are in design or implementation, as well as assessments. We're really trying to help increase the pace and fill those data gaps where fish passage assessments need to be conducted and have not yet. So if you do have an assessment project or are looking to get some assessments done in your watershed, please do consider applying to our funding opportunity. It's closed for the it's closed for 2024 for money that would arrive in 2025. So our next opportunity will come out this coming fall for money that will be available in spring of 2026. So there is a bit of a delay. However, we do know that these projects are going to continue happening. So in your long range visioning for funding your projects, do keep us in mind. The best way to learn about our funding opportunities, as well as any other events that are happening, such as our webinar today, is to sign up for the forum newsletter. You can do that anywhere on the website here at the bottom. It just asks for your name, your email, and what organization you're with. I'm the one who sends out our emails. I promise not to spam your inbox, and we never sell our people's information. So rest assured that you can sign up for our newsletter with no problems. I'm pretty certain that's why quite a few of you are here today, since I sent out a few emails about the webinar today. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. I'll give us just a minute or so for some questions about what you've heard so far, and then we're going to get into the topic for today. So firstly, you're welcome to unmute your mic and ask questions verbally if you'd like. You're also welcome to ask questions through the chat. We've got about 51 people on the line here, so we'll keep an eye on both the chat. From Brandon, a question: is grant eligibility restricted to Fish Passage? For the forum, for the California Fish Passage Forum funding opportunity, yes and no. We do prioritize restoring connectivity through the removal of barriers. So fish passage projects directly do score well for us. However, we do also like to fund general research about salmonids and other anadromous species, as well as floodplain restoration, riparian restoration. There's definitely a wide scope. If it benefits target anadromous species in California, we are interested in it. Jack, I see your hand up. Jack, you're on mute, just so you know.
In Auburn Ravine, which is in Placer County, near Sacramento, we are stuck trying to get fish passage over NID's Gold Hill Dam. We've tried everything for a long time. You're probably well aware of that. Mm-hmm. And I tried to get the gentleman who put a lawsuit against NID to get fish passage over Hemp Hill Dam. We did that. It's over. Now we're stuck at the Gold Hill Dam. The Gold Hill Dam is a 12-foot concrete dam that's been blocking anadromous fish and other fish since 1851. I tried to get William McKinnon of California Water Audit to sue them again, but he's kind of gone off the deep end for some reason and won't do that. And I've been trying to find another organization, much like California Water Audit, so I can get them to sue NID to get them over. And then once the fish are over the Gold Hill Dam, I'm really concerned of putting screens on the 9 remaining flashboard dams. Because I think that will multiply the number of anadromous fish that go to the Pacific, then come back to the Auburn Ravine to spawn, and I need help in both those areas.
Thank you, Jack. It's helpful to hear what you need. Yeah, dam removals, as you know, are no easy matter. And I am in touch with our folks over at CDFW about the flashboard dams. So I'll be reaching out to you more about kind of finding the right people to contact to chat about those flashboard dams, finding ownership. Thank you for letting me know. I will be interested to hear what you gleaned from the webinar today, and if there's any funding opportunities that can help with transportation nexus and passage around the Auburn Ravine. If there's not a transportation nexus over Gold Hill Dam or the flashboard dams, like a roadway, that might be harder for this opportunity, but there are definitely a lot of folks working on dam removals in the country and in California. So let's make sure we get you in touch with as many of those people as possible.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Jack. Does anybody else have any other questions before we hear from Alex about the funding opportunity today? Perfect. Thank you. All right, we're going to hear from Alex. During the presentation, I would just ask that your microphone be off so that we don't have any background noise leaking through. And then we're going to have plenty of time for questions and answers from Alex regarding the funding opportunity. So Alex, go ahead and feel free to share your screen and we'll have you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. Give me 1 second here.
No worries.
Can you see my screen now?
I can. Just hop that into presenter mode. Perfect.
Great. Well, first off, thank you, Holly, for that introduction. And thank you to the Fish Passage Forum for setting this up. It's much appreciated. So my name is Alex
Hey, Alex,
Jones.
just before you go too much farther, I'm hearing a lot of crackle from your microphone that actually just started when you started sharing your screen. I wonder if
Really?
you maybe, yeah, so I wonder if maybe you just need to turn your microphone down or your audio down. Let's just go ahead and just troubleshoot that for like 30 seconds just to make sure we hit it at the beginning of your talk. So go ahead and just mess with that a little bit and then say something so we can determine your microphone is working well.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, just make sure you speak, I guess, make sure you speak loudly. We did no crackle, but you were a little quiet. And then for everybody listening in, you're also able to just turn up the speaker on your computer and that will help Alex come through. Okay. Okay, Alex, go ahead and try now.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks again to the Fish Passage Forum for hosting this. So my name is Alex Jones. I work for US Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm the Culvert Aquatic Organism Passage Coordinator for the Pacific Southwest region. So that's the state of California and also the Klamath Basin, Oregon. And so you might have a question as to why I'm a Fish and Wildlife Service employee talking about a Department of Transportation or Federal Highways funding opportunity. So we have a really good partnership with Federal Highways, and they actually provide funding to support my position, which is in place to provide technical assistance, not only to grant recipients, but also to applicants and potential applicants to this program. So before I start talking about the Culvert program, I do want to talk about the program that I work within in the Fish and Wildlife Service, and that is the National Fish Passage Program. It's been in place since 1999, and we provide financial and technical assistance to restore aquatic habitat connectivity. Really cool thing about this program is it's voluntary, so it's we're not we don't fund projects that are required for mitigation purposes. Generally, it's partners who are interested in restoring habitat connectivity in their watersheds that are coming to us, and we work with them to identify solutions and in some cases provide funding or match them up with funding opportunities. It's really locally driven, focus on partnerships, and we received $200 million in funding over 5 years from the bipartisan infrastructure law. We were one of many agencies that received funding for aquatic habitat restoration work. And this is an example of one project that was funded with our BIL. If you hear me say BIL, I'm referring to the infrastructure law funding that has been already completed. And this is up in Maine. You can see on the left here the before photo, partially breached dam. It was presenting a real flood risk, especially for a couple of businesses upstream of the dam. It was also impacting connectivity for alewife migration in the area. You can see afterwards, after the dam was removed, restored channel. Also, importantly, reduced flood risk for the community there in Maine. So, oftentimes we like to focus a lot, and it's very important, the benefits to species and habitats from these sorts of projects, but there's also benefits to the local community in terms of reducing risk of flooding and a more robust infrastructure. So as I mentioned, the Fish Passage program within the service was one of many agencies that received funding from Bill or the infrastructure law to support aquatic habitat restoration, including fish passage specifically. So including Fish and Wildlife Service, we received funding for a couple different, sort of focus areas, including fish passage. Army Corps of Engineers received some funding for aquatic ecosystem restoration. Department of Transportation or Federal Highways for the Culvert AOP program. And that's just really to name a few. There's also agencies like FEMA that received some funding for dam safety that can be used for dam removals, Forest Service for legacy road and trail remediation for areas that impacts fish passage. And so, I'm going to spend most of my time today talking about the Department of Transportation, and I call it Federal Highways here, but it's really a Department of Transportation program. So just because it's not on a highway doesn't mean it's not necessarily eligible for the program. But it is the Culvert Removal, Replacement, Restoration Grant Program. I'll be calling it Culvert AOP program for short. And it provided $1 billion over 5 years to federal highways for projects that replace, remove, repair culverts or weirs that meaningfully improve or restore fish passage for anadromous fish. So there is a focus on anadromous fish here that is not present for some of those other bill programs, and obvious nexus with the forum there, because you're also primarily focused on fish passage for anadromous species. And when I say anadromous, we're talking about things like salmon, steelhead, Pacific lamprey, sturgeon, fish that are, spending most of their lives in the ocean and then returning to streams for spawning. And I'm probably preaching to the choir on this in terms of, what's a good culvert versus a bad culvert. This is an example of how undersized and poorly designed culverts can become barriers to fish passage and passage for other aquatic organisms. So here we have a undersized culvert that restricts stream flow, creates a jump barrier because there's been down cutting to the stream there. So it's going to be very difficult for fish or any aquatic species to pass over this. These culverts can also be issues, for people moving around as well. They tend to become blocked with debris, can cause floodwaters to overtop the road fairly easily. You also have the whole issue of maintenance. Someone's got to go out and unclog these culverts from time to time. Here's another example one of a low flow crossing. I think this is up near Beale Air Force Base. Two culverts in the middle there, and this is really going to be a barrier for fish at low flows. And so now I'll show you some better designed culverts, road stream crossings. So here you see natural substrate. There's no channel restrictions, or not as much channel restrictions, or at least spanning the full width of the active stream channel. There's not a drop, so fish and other species are going to be able to move through here a lot easier. Another one, similarly, natural stream channel, no constriction of the stream here. Fish are going to be a lot more able to pass at a site like this versus some of those other ones that I showed you earlier. And then, of course, you've got our bridges as well, which this program can fund replacement of culverts with a bridge, but it cannot fund replacement of a bridge with a culvert or just general bridge improvements. So there does have to be that culvert component or weir component and a transportation nexus. So in terms of eligible entities, what projects are eligible, what entities can apply for this grant opportunity. Tribes can apply, and that the definition there is federally recognized tribes. States can apply, so any state agency, oftentimes, so Caltrans had, I think, 4 projects last year that received funding, but it's not necessarily limited to just DOT. The state DOTs can also be, state wildlife agencies, state parks, any state agency. Also, units of local government can apply. So resource conservation districts, cities, counties, even school districts, if there's a project, a culvert project that is, on a school land. Eligible projects, removal, replacement, repair of culverts, hence culvert AOP. But also, one thing I want to make sure everyone is aware of is also removal, replacement, and repair of weirs. So the notice of funding opportunity does define what a weir is. And this is, pulled straight from the funding opportunity. Basically, a constructed barrier on a stream channel designed to provide hydraulic control without completely stopping flow or creating a large storage impoundment. So you have really 2 things there: designed to provide hydraulic control, and you're not completely, stopping the flow of water or creating a storage impoundment. So the program is not going to fund, large dam removals where there's a large impoundment, but, think about whether your project, if it's not a culvert project, might qualify as a weir based on this definition. And then also eligible projects must improve fish passage for anadromous fish and have that transportation nexus. So that's an important piece of this program. Also written into the law is some project prioritization elements for the program. And so projects that improve fish passage for listed anadromous fish stocks. So that's pretty clear cut, is a species listed under the ESA, but also fish stocks that could reasonably become listed, fish stocks identified as prey for ESA listed species such as orca, and anadromous fish stocks identified as climate resilient stocks. So A is pretty clear cut, right? Fish stocks listed under ESA. B, C, and D, we don't have a list necessarily that says these are the species that are priorities. So it would really be up to applicants to, make the case that the project benefits a fish stock that is, for instance, climate resilient or could reasonably become listed. And then the second priority that is mentioned in the law is projects that would open up more than 200 meters of upstream habitat. Financial considerations and cost share requirements. This is an important thing to be aware of for any potential applicants. So for states and units of local government, the federal share of the project cannot exceed 80%. So basically that's a 20% non-federal cost share requirement. For tribal applicants, the federal share is up to 100%, so there is no cost share requirement for tribal recipients. Another thing to keep in mind is that generally it is reimbursable funding to recipients. So that means once an agreement is in place on these grants, funding is provided as costs are incurred, and then invoices submitted to, depending on the agreement type, it would be either to federal highways or the state DOT. It would just depend. But so that is something to keep in mind, is that it is reimbursable funding, not received upfront. Now, there is some wording in the NOFO that says that on a case-by-case basis, there may be alternative arrangements. We don't necessarily know how that will look, so there might be some exceptions to this, but just something to keep in mind. As it is written, it says that mostly it's going to be reimbursable funding on these projects. And then also within the law, it says that federal highways and DOT should consult with NOAA and NIMS, and also the Fish and Wildlife Service on the program. And that's kind of where I come in here. Is I'm here to provide technical assistance, so I can provide potentially help on applications, answer questions, get you to the right people who can answer questions when it comes to this program. And federal highways funded positions in every Fish and Wildlife Service region with anadromous fish, so that are potentially eligible for this program. So if you're not located in California, there's someone you can go to in your region still for technical assistance, and I can get you in touch with the right person if you reach out and ask. In terms of timeline, so the year 2 notice of funding opportunity was recently posted on grants.gov. The deadline for applications is September 23rd. So that's a 90-day open period. And this notice of funding opportunity was a multiple year funding opportunity that was posted with open periods. So years 3 through 5, there's going to be a 60-day open period under the same funding opportunity notice. And those dates, generally it's going to be open in June and closing in August each year. So, if you have a project in mind where you're not sure if it's to that point this year where you are ready to submit an application for this program, there's also going to be 3 more years of potential opportunities coming up. So something to keep in mind there. And then just want to point out that there are also other federal highways or Department of Transportation BIL programs. If your project maybe isn't a good fit for this program because it's a bridge project or there's no anadromous fish, and both of these are open now for applications. One is the Wildlife Crossings program, and the program focus here is really on reducing wildlife vehicle collisions. But AOP, Aquatic Organism Passage projects, are eligible for this. And this is open for applications until September 4th. And then I had a few questions on are bridge projects eligible? Well, generally not, unless maybe the infrastructure of the site could be considered a weir or culvert in some way. But federal highways also received funding for this bridge investment program. And I guess something to keep in mind here is that in the bridge investment program, 5% of that funding can be used for culvert replacements. So while the culvert AOP program cannot fund bridge replacements, the bridge investment program is another potential source for culvert replacement projects, even though it is a relatively small amount, just 5% set aside for that. Another thing for those of you who, if I'm not able to answer questions today, Federal Highways is hosting an upcoming webinar that will focus on how to apply for the Culvert AOP grant program. That is coming up next week, July 15th, and that's going to be 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Registration is required to attend that. But if you're not available this day, last year the webinar was recorded and posted on the Culvert AOP program website. So that is likely to happen again. They generally record and post these webinars. So with that, I'll field some questions. It looks like we had a few coming in the chat. And then I'll also provide, end on this page with contacts and useful links. So here is the program website on the Federal Highways website. Here is the contact email for Department of Transportation. So you can ask them questions here. I'm also available for that technical assistance piece for the state of California and the Klamath Basin, Oregon. So you can email me and I can either answer your question or get you in touch with someone who can answer your question. That's my email, phone number, and then the website for our Fish and Wildlife Service Fish Passage program. So with that, I'll take a look at some questions in the chat. Holly, did you want to?
Yeah, I can help with this, no problem. Okay. Carrie asked about programs for non-anadromous but federally listed trout species. I know that's slightly different than the funding opportunity we're here to talk about today. Alex, if you've got any off the top of your head, you're welcome to say them. Otherwise, we can email Carrie with what we've got.
Yeah, absolutely. So a great spot to look for opportunities and kind of pick the opportunities that might be good fits for your project, because each of these funding opportunities have slightly different focuses. Is a Federal Fish Passage portal. So I would recommend just doing a quick Google for Federal Fish Passage portal. But some that come to mind in terms of potential funding for non-anadromous species, it really does depend on the project and where it's located. But our National Fish Passage program, we did just select projects for 24 and 25, but there will be one more year of funding that funds projects nationwide that benefits both anadromous and non-anadromous species. So that one comes to mind. The Forest Service received some funding for culvert removal. Some of that is focused on Forest Service lands, but some of that could be providing funding off Forest Service lands, I believe, as well. So there's quite a few. It kind of just depends on the area that your project is and sort of the focus of the project.
Thank you, Alex. Carrie, definitely we can get in touch with that. I did just post a link to the Interagency Fish Passage portal down below. We definitely have several interested parties from states without a coastal area who don't have anadromous fish, so I know that they do exist. Let us know if that works for you, and definitely feel free to email Alex or myself if you're still not finding what you're looking for. Question from Michael: are all crossings with anadromy eligible, or are grants restricted to federal interest roads?
So it's restricted to culverts and weirs. So if it's a road stream crossing that has, an undersized culvert off of federal land, there's no restrictions there. It can, there were even projects in year one that were, I believe, on private roads. So, it can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be necessarily on federal lands.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right. Question from Jessica: would a concreted low flow vehicular crossing be considered a weir?
It would potentially, there's still, it depends. So that definition that I shared, it is the two things that it states are that it's in place to provide hydraulic control, and then also that it doesn't create a large impoundment. So basically you have water flowing freely over it. It would kind of depend what the structure is.
Thank you. Jessica, if you would like to email us with some more details about the structure, we could probably answer that more specifically. So feel free to email Alex yourself about that.
And oftentimes those low flow road crossings can have small culverts embedded in them. So they could potentially qualify as culverts too. It just kind of depends on what the site looks like.
Got it. I believe those are all the questions in the chat that made it through before we had our first hand raise. So Stephanie, I do want to give you a chance to ask your question, and then we'll continue to pull questions from the chat also. So Stephanie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I had a couple questions. First, I wanted to clarify what the eligible activities would be. I saw that there were a few listed on the website. There's engineering, consultation, permitting, and then there's something called subset activities. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about what that means. It sounds like it could mean construction, but I just wanted to get some clarity on that.
Yeah, I'd have to look if you were finding this on the program website.
Yeah, and so yeah, it said subset activities, and that included it says subsets within project development, such as environmental studies and reviews, and proposed to complete project activities, final design and construction.
So, my understanding is in terms of eligible activities, it is fairly inclusive as long as it's a component of a project that is a culvert replacement or remediation. So definitely environmental compliance, design, engineering, planning, even, obtaining a right of way. I don't think it can be a focus, but I think it can be sort of a portion of the project. And, there's oftentimes, riparian plantings, revegetation, fish removal, so that's all a component of a culvert replacement project. So my understanding is that it's pretty inclusive in terms of activities, but the program is not going to fund like something that's not related to a culvert, but there's different activities obviously related to culvert replacement, and generally those can be funded.
Okay, yeah, I mostly just wanted to make sure it included both planning and implementation. So it sounds like yes.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
And then I also wanted to ask about timing on a couple of things. I was curious about your anticipated timing of receiving funding after applying, and then also what the requirements are on timing for cost share. Like if the cost share has to come in at the same time as the funding, or if it can be from previous phases of the project.
Right, that's a good question. The timing is more difficult to answer because for year one there were some delays. I think just because this is a new program, right, that Federal Highways has to sort of set up and create. So where the due date is September 23rd. Anything I say will just be a guess, but I would hope that agreements would be in place by next summer. In terms of cost share, I do believe that cost share has to be part of the project that is provided funding, so not an earlier phase of the project, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, we do have some questions kind of in that same vein about the amount or the timeline for funding, the duration of funding. So I'm just going to kind of combine Jessica and Elena's comment in the chat. So let's start with Jessica's. What's the duration of funding source for this next round? How many years of funding do you have?
Oh, for this next round, ending in September, that would be just 1 year of funding. So year 2 of the program. So kind of, as I mentioned, it's a combined NOFO, but they're doing open periods each year. So my understanding is that this is just going to be 1 year of funding.
Got it. So an individual project would be funded for a season, understood. And then how many
Well, let me caveat that by
go ahead.
it depends on the agreement. So generally, you know, I can't really speak much to the structure of the agreements that federal highways or the state DOT Caltrans uses. But generally for Fish and Wildlife Service, it's often 5-year agreements, right? So it's the application period is FY23 funding, but oftentimes that goes into like a 5-year agreement. So that would be a good question for the Culvert AOP email, or I can ask for you and confirm. But generally speaking, for federal agreements, it's usually 5-year agreements.
Got it. Thank you very much. That's a good distinction to have. I've definitely heard the recommendation just to, you know, go for the 5-year agreement to give yourself some flexibility there. And then we do just have a question about why the open period is shortened to 60 days. I don't know how much you want to get into that, but if you would like to, we can talk about.
You know, it would be one of those things that I think is just a guess. My guess would be just because the NOFO will be available on grants.gov the entire time. So you really have, if you're going to submit a proposal next year, you can start right now getting ready for it. So that 60-day open period is just when you can actually submit the application. So just probably because it's going to be available for you to reference the whole time. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Let's see. Tracy's question about the grant term. Would that be that 5-year grant agreement that's standard for a lot of the federal opportunities?
That would be a better question for federal highways, and I can ask that question, but I really don't want to speak to any specifics about grant terms or terms of the agreement.
Understood. So Tracy, if you're interested, you are welcome to just email that culvertaop@dot.gov. You're also welcome to CC Alex and or myself, and we can ask those more specific or technical questions there. That is a good one. Thank you for asking it. A question from Melissa, is there a limit to how often invoices can be submitted? Are there retentions? And is there an expected turnaround time for the reimbursement if you were to be funded through the program?
Yeah, that I would defer to DOT, and that's going to be depending on the structure. So the way that the funds can flow is you can, if you're a local agency, you could have you know, an agreement with Caltrans or directly with federal highways. So it's really going to depend just on sort of the flavor of the agreement.
Understood. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Question from Carson, a little bit more of a technical or project focused question. Sediment reduction project. Let's see, would a project centered on sediment reduction from drainage culvert replacements leading into anadromous fish waterways or habitat be considered, as opposed to a culvert that directly handles stream flow? Oh, got it. So that's yeah, the question about, you know, what the culvert is doing. That's a good one, Carson. Thank you for asking.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question, and really the focus of the program is culverts that restore passage for anadromous fish.
Got it.
So, you know, passage into fish habitat.
Understood. So yeah, Carson, if you do have anadromous species in the system, I would say that would be a good question to explore, you know, whether those culverts that you would be replacing are providing passage, or whether or not the change to the system would facilitate passage in the system that you're talking about. So Alex, I guess I had a bit of a question for you. I understand that a lot of these opportunities also, or that this opportunity you can help provide technical assistance. Do you know if there's options for folks to get sort of administrative assistance, helping put together their application, submit their application, or is there like a letter of intent or a pre-application review process so people can get feedback on their application before it's submitted?
Yeah, so that's there is an opportunity for that, and in California, I'm your person to help with that. So in terms of helping with the application, you know, providing insight on that, yep, I'm your go-to.
Fantastic. I'm so glad that that service is available. I know applications can sometimes be a bit of a lift.
Yeah.
I realized we had skipped over an earlier question, and Richard Van Zant reminded me of it. Could you firstly kind of clarify what you mean exactly by transportation nexus? And then along with that, what is considered a road? Fire roads, access roads, hiking trails. How does that play into this opportunity?
Right. And so a transportation nexus, this would really be up to the application to make the case. So oftentimes it is going to be road stream crossings, right? That's often where culverts end up being. There's nothing in the opportunity that says that it has to be restricted to a road. So railroad culverts are eligible. Other types of culverts are eligible. So it does not have to be limited to a road. But if you take a look on the program website, you can look and see what was funded in year one. But generally, it's weirs below, within right of ways of highways, culverts at road stream crossings. I mentioned that there were, some projects funded that were on private roads as well. So I think the transportation nexus, it's kind of up to you to define as the applicant, but to me, it seems to be fairly inclusive, right? It's not just necessarily a culvert that's on a road stream crossing. It can be a weir below a bridge, or it could be a railroad culvert, for instance.
Thank you, Alex. That's really helpful. Question from Samuel. Where can we learn more about the Wildlife Crossing Program? They've got a culvert replacement project that would primarily benefit, southern sea otters. Wow, how exciting.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool project. And I believe if you just Google the Wildlife Crossing Program, federal highways, it should pop up. I believe they actually just hosted a webinar for that, and they have posted that on their website. So let me see if I can pull that up and drop a link.
I got it, Alex.
Okay, great.
All right. Program resources. I put the website there in the chat. I was just looking for that latest webinar to see if I could find the recording.
And let's see. I know that I got emailed that there was a recording, so I can
Perfect. Yeah, if you can track that down, that's handy.
And send that out.
All right, these have been an excellent suite of questions. We're just about approaching our end time for the webinar. So if you've got something simmering in your mind, feel free to pop that into the chat. Now's a great opportunity to get those lingering questions answered. Okay, I feel like we are about there. Alex, remind us one more time when that application due date is.
Yeah, for year 2, so for this round of applications, it's going to be September 23rd.
Perfect, thank you very much. All right, so applications due in on September 23rd. We have the website link here in the chat. And then there is a webinar hosted by the Federal Highways Administration coming up that goes into probably some of the same information you've heard today, but then also focus on how to apply. So if based on what you've heard today, you're interested in applying and starting to get your application together for that September deadline, feel free to check out that webinar that's going to be happening on July 15th. So just next week on Monday. And we look forward to seeing what wonderful projects we have that are going to be benefiting our beautiful anadromous California species. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Feel free to email Alex or myself with any questions.
Yeah, and Holly, the Federal Highways webinar, I think they'll probably be pretty well equipped to answer those specifics about like that people had about agreements and reimbursement and things like that.
Oh,
so
great.
if you had those questions, definitely try and stop in and ask in that forum. So
fantastic. Glad to hear it, Alex. Yeah, I've heard that those email addresses are open, so definitely don't be shy. Feel free to email Alex or that that DOT web address with questions. I'll be posting the recording of this webinar on the California Fish Passage website for your reference to look back on, and I hope you all have a really wonderful day.